We're mic'd up tonight to try to understand the ins and the outs of the NCAA's new policy allowing student athletes to earn money on name, image, and likeness. NIL is the abbreviation. You're going to see a lot in the coming weeks. We have Nico Yantko, Deputy Director of Louisiana Athletics, and Tom Burke, the Associate Director of Compliance for the Raging Cajuns. Guys, I appreciate you coming on. A bunch of states were set to have laws go into effect today, circumventing the NCAA's old policy. Is there relief that the league ruled yesterday allowing every school to play by the same set of rules?
Yeah, no, I think the ability to have some consistency and some continuity there is certainly important for us when it comes to the level playing field, whether that be recruiting and obviously the permissible benefits for student athletes in this space. But, I think Tom would have a little bit more specifics on how that actually impacts the day-to-day of the governance or the empowerment, if you will, of these opportunities for young people.
Yeah, so this has been in the works for the last several years, right? You've seen states that have tried to pass some of their state laws over the last couple of years and things like that. I think Florida being the first to do so. And so the NCAA basically, adopted an interim NIL policy for those states that did not have any state laws that were set to go into effect on July 1st. Louisiana, the House and Senate had passed State Bill 60. And I think the governor's expected to sign off on it officially in the mid-July. But it is effective as of today, July 1st, to allow student athletes to earn compensation for use of their name, image, and likeness. So definitely opens the doors for a lot of opportunities for our student athletes to capitalize on the use of their NIL.
I know schools have been busy over the last couple of weeks, kind of preparing for this moment, setting up some programs to help students understand the policies and help them, make money on their name, image, and likeness. What is UL and what are you guys specifically doing right now to help the students understand all this?
Right. I can kind of speak a little bit, and then I'll let Nico kind of chime in on some of the Go Lead, initiatives. But really speaking to the space of NIL, we have been working with the ADs in the state of Louisiana and the UL systems group as well to try to talk through what our policy is going to be. Really since the last several months that we've been kind of working on this process. We've been putting together PowerPoint presentations and NIL tip sheets that we provided to our student athletes. Over the last several days leading up to July 1st, myself, we've met with individually with the football team, men's basketball team, women's basketball team to really talk through how this NIL space will look for student athletes and the approval process for that. Talking through some of the specifics on what they can and can't do, really trying to make it a positive for them, right? This is a very cool space to be a student athlete right now. They have a lot of opportunities to use their name, image, likeness for compensation. So really trying to make it a positive, just showing them the guardrails of things that they can and can't do. And so, we have an approval process for the athletes to notify us ahead of time, so it meets the state's disclosure requirement. And then we have basically a lot of educational resources for them, right? It's part of the state bill says institutional staff member cannot arrange or provide compensation for our student athletes. So again, we have to be mindful of that part of the state law, but also trying to educate them to the best extent possible.
Is there a sense that among schools that having the best NIL resources becomes a bit of a recruiting tool, schools that are most prepared to help these students? Is that a recruiting pitch?
Yeah, it absolutely is. Recruiting is absolutely on the forefront of this conversation. And if you're not preparing for this, I think you're going to fall behind pretty quickly, as this is really the next arms race in a lot of ways. So one thing, with Tom's, guidance and vision here and a lot of dialogue that we've had with our head coaches and a lot of our student athletes was, how are we preparing and educating our student athletes and stakeholders on what's to come in this space? So one thing that we have implemented, as you've seen trickled out through our social channels, was the implementation of the Go Lead initiative. And for us, that's a three-prong approach to student athlete development. One being the preparedness opportunity and education on name, image, and likeness, preparing these young folks with the opportunity to part with brand manager Jeremy Darlow, who is nationally renowned, globally renowned individual who's led Adidas campaigns, pro athlete campaigns, so on and so forth. They'll have access to partner with him to help their opportunities, grow vastly from a sense of, hey, how are you managing your day-to-day of your brand? How are you getting involved with businesses? What is your message? teaching them how to leverage, sport for opportunities. But more importantly for us with this program is not only focusing on the opportunities that'll be presented, from recruitment to their end of their eligibility here on campus, but are we positioning them for the ability to leverage this for life after sport, right? The ability to look at this and how these experiences can serve them for a lifetime is really what we're interested in. And that's where we've implemented the other two prongs of this is a leadership and mentorship development program that they can partner with CEOs and local companies and executives to get tutelage and the ability to learn a little bit more of life outside of, the playing surface or in the weight room, right? We want to really give them something outside of the classroom from an educational purpose. So what we've seen already with this program is we've had a ton of executives in this community that want to invest their time, talent, and treasures into our student athletes. And our hopes is that these individuals partner with them for initiatives and networking opportunities for a long time to come. And then the final process of this is the ability to have them involved with civic engagement opportunities as well, learning how cities work, learning how communities function, so that they can help, when they're even as student athletes or professional athletes or eventually as just professionals, have the ability to make a strong impact in their communities the way they know how. So we're really excited about this initiative, and Tom's done a tremendous job, a remarkable job preparing us for this moment. And I know our student athletes and coaches are certainly excited about this new evolution for all of us in the higher education space. But most importantly, it is absolutely a recruiting tool that the Raging Cajuns are ready for.
Some athletic directors have been vocal about their concerns about these policies, mainly because the rules seem fairly wide open. Is there a specific concern that your office has right now about how these rules could be applied?
There is definitely a little bit of concern in that space, right? From a recruiting inducement standpoint, right? A lot of this, the verbiage in a lot of the state bills, as well as the NCAA's interim policy, basically says that it cannot be used as pay for performance. It cannot be used as a recruiting inducement, right? And the NCAA has been very clear in the last several days that, it's going to be a little bit difficult to enforce even on their end. They're not even going to provide a lot of guidance to member institutions as to what would constitute a violation or not. So it'll go through the normal NCAA enforcement channels if there is, rumored to be any type of issue in that space. But again, whereas before, you would hear, I think there's a news article years ago about the bag man, right? For some of, college football's programs, right? The bag man could be a little bit more in a public space in this setting, right? But it's still going to be difficult to track and monitor whether that was used as a recruiting inducement or used for the kid's use of his NIL, right? So it is going to be a little bit tricky in that space, to be honest.
And Tom, this question is going to be right in your department. I mean, the schools, as you just kind of said, they're responsible for now policing this. Is that correct? And what keeps schools from taking advantage of kind of being the law here?
I mean, I guess I'm going to go back on what our current policy is a little bit and hope that the sense that the relationships that we develop with our student athletes and the approval process that we have on the front end is going to help with that relationship through that deal, right? Again, I've spoken to several sports in the last couple of days. We're trying to make it a positive, and I've already had many conversations with athletes that are looking to do deals, and I've already done deals in the last 24 hours, right? And so trying to keep that relationship and that communication open with our student athletes to know that our office will serve as a resource for them to help put them in the position to have these NIL agreements and future NIL deals and not make it a negative.
What role can some sort of third-party kind of intermediary play in this? Can schools hire third parties to help broker these deals? Like, is there a role for that right now?
I think, what you're referring to are some of these companies that can assist with, these student athletes, coaching them through leveraging their brand and having access to these professional folks. I'll let Tom talk a little bit more about the specifics of how that gets filtered to the student athlete.
Right. Essentially, some of these companies that are out there, a lot of them are doing the same thing, right? They have an open marketplace, essentially, is what it is, where athletes can log in, create an account. You have businesses that have accounts too, and it allows the student athlete and the business to leverage the deal within that system, right? So everything's done within the app or software system where they're coming up with the deal, all the specifics are done in there, even they're paying the athlete through that specific software program. So it allows the institution or individual to monitor that, more in that space, right? But the interesting part in that is that the NCAA does not have a restriction on a cap, right? There's not a cap on the limit, right? I think I even saw today there's an LSU gymnast that has the ability to possibly make north of $1 million before school starts in the fall. So that's an example of, you can have all the monitoring in place that you want to, but if they're being paid fair market value based on what that company wants to pay them, we are not allowed to prohibit that at all, right? LSU's compliance staff cannot stop that gymnast from making $1 million by August if that's what she's making in those deals. So that's where it becomes a little bit difficult from an enforcement and monitoring standpoint. Yes, you can have all this data in the software program, but you're still not able to restrict or prohibit it as long as it's not violating anything with the state law.
And can schools partner with these third parties? And is there a financial incentive for schools to maybe do these partnerships with these third parties?
Schools are able to partner with these third party groups, right? You're seeing, some schools that are going out there and linking up with some of these companies. The interesting part is that you don't know if the NCAA is going to implement a third party administrator, moving forward. So there is a little bit of concern in that space, right? The NCAA kind of put the pause on a third-party administrator for this coming year, but I think it may come up at a later date. So that's where there is a little bit of concern in that space. But there's a lot of companies out there that are doing the same thing. Influencer, Open Doors. I'm not trying to name drop all of them. You don't have to put that in the actual recording, but there's a lot of software companies out there that are doing the same thing to kind of link up the student athlete and these companies. And there is a financial charge to that the institution would be required to pay for.
Well, one final question, Nico. I think this speaks straight to your heart. This is a dramatic change in NCAA policy that is empowering these student athletes. As a former player yourself, how exciting is kind of this movement right now?
I think it's really exciting. And, even though there's a lot of the unknowns that are still out there, I think it's a great opportunity for young people to realize, the marketplace, understand their value and what that may be. Now, I think there's going to be some student athletes that'll be bigger winners in this than others, and that's okay. I think it's still the opportunity for young people to, again, get that opportunity to go out and, experience this. And I think it's going to give them real life experiences while they're in school to prepare them for negotiating after school, to understanding, how it works to be, partnering with these companies, working with CEOs, reporting to other individuals. I really do think there's a lot of life lessons that are going to come from this that, I regret, those opportunities weren't there years ago, but at the same time, I'm really excited for these guys to capitalize on this. And, I hope that we can only continue to keep the main focus at heart here and out in front of us. And that's creating a wonderful student athlete experience. And providing young people an opportunity to come here and grow. And at the end of the day, as long as that's our vision and mission, I think we're doing the right thing.
I'm going to sneak one more in here for you, Nico. J.J. Redick went on Twitter last night and said, had he been able to get paid when he was in college, he would have bought a lot of Lacoste shirts. Nico, what would you have made with those first endorsement checks?
Well, one, he would have made a lot more money than I would have. Two, you're probably looking at, simple things like buying a meal or updating your wardrobe or just, honestly, probably at that point, trying to start a savings account or maybe some small investments that I'm proud to say our student athletes are doing now, having in conversations with Levi Lewis. Those are the things he's thinking about with this. He's looking beyond the ability to get a free sandwich from time to time. He's actually talking about how this can truly be something that creates a seed for him to nourish over the next couple of years to really blossom into something special for him to serve him for his lifetime. And that's where I'm most proud. And that's a compliment to not only, Tom Burke and his effort, Coach Napier, but also the quality of student athletes that get to represent the Raging Cajuns every day. And to me, that's really exciting.
Such a polished answer there from you. I appreciate you guys coming on. It's Nico, Yantko, and Tom Burke from Louisiana Raging Cajun Athletics discussing the new name, image, and likeness policy from the NCAA. Guys, I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Andrew.
And best wishes in your next journey.